Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have a very fun video topic, and this is a hypothetical 2028 presidential election prediction. In this scenario, the former Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, runs once again for president and wins the Democratic nomination this time, actually going through a primary process and doing so. And she faces off against not J.D. Vance, but actually the son of the President of the United States, Donald Trump Jr. In this hypothetical scenario, for some reason, J.D. Vance does not become the Republican nominee. Trump Jr. runs in the Republican primary as the heir to the MAGA movement, and being the president's son, having very high name recognition, he's able to win the Republican primary and go off to face off against Harris in the general election. And it's funny, looking at this, you would think, well, this makes no sense. This is completely far-fetched. And yet, in some of the few primary polls I've seen so far, Donald Trump Jr. is often polling right behind J.D. Vance for the 2028 Republican primary. If you don't believe me, I'll show you right here. Here on the website racetothewhitehouse.com, J.D. Vance is at first among the national polling average at 39.4%. Number 2 is Donald Trump Jr. at 26.4%. Number 3 is Ron DeSantis in third at 12.8%. So, of all the competitors, Trump Jr. is actually the closest to Vance's support, which is very, very fascinating. So, with that said, let's get into how I think the 2028 election of Harris versus Trump Jr. would go. I think this would be very interesting and probably even more divisive than what 2024 ended up being, as President Trump had the experience of serving in the White House for 4 years. Trump Jr. does not have that experience, which would make a lot of Democrats and independents likely turn away from Trump, where at the same time, those voters who are dedicated to Trump and the Make America Great Again movement would probably be just as energized to vote for Trump Jr. as they were to vote for Trump. This is also largely contingent on how the Trump administration is viewed by the end of 2028, because this is no doubt going to be, do Americans want more of Trump or not? So Harris is at 211, Trump Jr. is at 219. First, I'm going to start off with the state of Minnesota and its 10 electoral votes. We did just see the state of Minnesota vote for Kamala Harris in 2024, 51% to 47%, a 4% win for the Democrats. Here, I think in 2028, I think Harris against Trump Jr. would be able to get a little over 5% in Minnesota, which would nearly edge Minnesota up to a likely Democratic win. While we're looking at this, we're going to look at Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District, which voted for Kamala Harris by about 5 points, on the edge between being a lean and likely win. I think in this election scenario, Nebraska's 2nd District would once again go for Kamala Harris, this time by a little bit more than 5%, a likely Democratic win. This puts Harris at 222, Trump Jr. at 219. We go to the state of Nevada, a state where Donald Trump, his father, won 51% to 47% over Kamala Harris. No tax on tips was a very big proponent of the Trump campaign, and I think Trump Jr. would run on that policy as well, saying what his father was able to do for the workers in Clark County and Las Vegas. Clark County voted for Harris over Trump 50% to 48%, a very close election, Trump doing the best out of any Republican in Clark County in the 2000s. And I think that would be enough for Trump Jr. to actually be able to carry the state of Nevada once again. Again, over 1% of the vote, not more than 5, making it a lean Republican state. Now the state of Arizona and its 11 electoral votes. Arizona, we saw go for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris by 5 points, 52% to 47%. In this scenario where Trump won Maricopa County by 3 points last time, I think Trump Jr. does slightly worse in Arizona. It will not be a likely Republican win this time. I think it'll be a lean Republican win. But I do think Trump Jr. would be able to win the state of Arizona, again going off of his father's administration and his father's success in the closing the border policies. In a state like Arizona, I think Trump Jr. would be able to do a little bit better there than in perhaps some other states. In the state of Georgia and its 16 electoral votes, this is a very, very close one where in 2024, we did see the state of Georgia vote for Donald Trump 51% to 49% over Kamala Harris in a very close race. The Atlanta surrounding area continued to trend Democratic, where Trump maxed out a lot of vote in the rural areas in the state of Georgia. After 4 more years of people moving into the state of Georgia and growth in the Atlanta area, on top of Trump Jr. likely isolating some moderate voters and independent voters, I actually do think Georgia narrowly does flip for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump Jr. in the scenario. Harris likely winning the state of Georgia by a similar margin to what President Biden did back in 2020, where Biden won the state by about 0.2%. I think Harris could do so once again against Trump Jr. in the scenario. This puts Harris at 238, Trump Jr. at 236. The state of North Carolina, this is the home state of Eric Trump's wife, Laura Trump. Trump won it 51% to 48% over Kamala Harris in 2024. And in this scenario, I do think we did see this is what the map of North Carolina looked like. Trump Jr. versus Harris. I think North Carolina, it's on the edge between being a lean Republican state and a tilt Republican state. I think it goes about 1.4, 1.5%, enough to make North Carolina a lean Republican seat. This puts Trump Jr. at 252. Harris is at 238. Now we're going to move into the Northeast, or the state of New Hampshire, and it's 4 electoral votes. More competitive this time around, as both campaigns recognize it as a swing state. Harris won it over Trump by 3%, 51% to 48% by 3 points. This time around, I think Harris does a little bit better in the state, as a lot of the more anti-Trump Republicans in New Hampshire come out against Trump Jr., even more so than they did against Trump in 2024. I think New Hampshire goes right on the edge between lean Democrat and likely Democrat for Harris. I think Harris wins it by about 4.5 to 5 points. A lean Democratic win for Harris over Trump Jr. Harris has 242 electoral votes. Trump Jr. has 252. This one is coming right down to the wire between Harris and Trump Jr. In the state of Wisconsin, a state that was very, very close in 2024, Donald Trump defeated Kamala Harris 49.7% to Harris's 48.8%, a 0.9% victory. Very, very close, in large part due to Trump's performance in the surrounding Madison areas and the Kenosha, Racine, Waukesha area around Milwaukee. Trump doing very well with these voters here. I do think in 2028, though, Trump Jr. versus Harris, I think Harris is able to win some of these voters back and narrowly win Wisconsin by approximately 0.2 to 0.3%, similar to how Georgia would perform in this election. This puts Harris at 252, Trump Jr. also at 252. This election would be coming down to the states of Michigan and Pennsylvania, and this is where things get very, very interesting. Because Michigan, we did see a very big swing on Donald Trump's direction, Trump getting 49.7%, Harris getting 48.3%. This was a 1.4% win for Trump over Harris. And on the same time that Michigan narrowly voted for the Democratic senator, Trump was able to win the state of Michigan in 2024. As for how Harris versus Trump Jr. does, this state, just by the absolute thinnest of margins, barely goes for Donald Trump Jr. over Kamala Harris. It did vote about 0.5% more Republican than Wisconsin did in 2024, and I think that would make the difference between a very narrow win for Trump Jr. in the state of Michigan, getting him up to 267 electoral votes. And the 2028 presidential election of Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump Jr. would come down to the 19 electoral votes of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is a state that is going to be incredibly close once again. Donald Trump was able to win it 50.4% to 48.7% over Kamala Harris. Trump doing much better in a lot of these suburban areas. Trump Jr. would have a harder time winning a lot of these areas than Trump did, even though he has his father's administration to go off of. It's going to be an incredibly close race. Trump Jr. ekes out a victory in Pennsylvania by less than 0.3%, narrowly giving him 286 electoral votes, and the White House due in large part to his father campaigning for him in his administration. This has Trump Jr. winning the election 286 electoral votes to Harris's 252, one of the closest presidential elections in the history of the United States in this hypothetical 2028 scenario. So that's how I have the 2028 election looking between Trump Jr. and Kamala Harris. It's a really fun one and a fun scenario to imagine, and I think certainly one that would get a lot of people very riled up and very passionate about. So I'm interested to hear what your thoughts about how this election would go between Harris and Trump Jr. Make sure you leave a comment below telling me your thoughts about who you think would win and what the electoral vote numbers in states would look like. Make sure you give the video a like and click subscribe. Remember to stay tuned because I post a new video every single day, so make sure to come back for those videos. Alright, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button. And make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really like the video. And remember to stay tuned because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day, so I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.